The last 3 years have been, kind of this existential crisis and discussion around what is art, what is humanity, what is creativity, what is copyright, all of those things that that have not been at the forefront of conversations have come to the forefront with the rise of 11 Labs and ChatGPT and other large-scale AI systems that are out there. And right now, we're grappling with those questions and trying to find answers to them.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We are on the Real podcast where we're talking about unfiltered conversations about industry issues, industry topics, the things that we all are going through in industry people. Everything from video to post-production to voice acting to all this AI talk that's happening right now. We are talking and we're diving right into all of the deep issues. So today we have Tim Friedlander, and he is from NAVA talking to us here straight out about this conversation about how problem about AI and voice acting and how it's affecting our voice actors and the voice acting industry. So, Tim, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into your role, and just give us a short little intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. My name is Tim Friedlander, president and co-founder of NAVA, which is the National Association of Voice Actors. We launched exactly 3 years ago last week, open to members with the intention of providing access to national health care for freelance voice actors. And from there, jumped directly into this AI conversation. The groups grew out of, NAVA grew out of two groups that we had, one that I had in Los Angeles called the Voiceover Collective and the Gardner Collective, and one in New York called the Voice Actors of NYC, which is our co-founder, Karin Gilfrey, had founded.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. So let's go
Yeah,
ahead and start this conversation.
let's
From
do it.
your view, from your view as president of NAVA, what's the current state of the voice acting industry in terms of AI and the fight against it, and what has changed most in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm going to step back a little bit and we'll just kind of look at the
Sure.
industry itself as a whole, minus
Yeah.
AI. The last few years have been just tough on the entertainment industry in general. We've had strikes, we've had fires in Los Angeles, we've had flooding in, North Carolina, where our large group of voice actors are. There's been an administration change, which has kind of unnerved a lot of the industry, unsettled a lot of the industry. So there's a lot of factors out there that have really impacted the industry beyond, and then you throw AI into this conversation, and now you've got a pretty substantial change. The last 3 years have been kind of this existential crisis and discussion around what is art, what is humanity, what is creativity, what is copyright, all of those things that that have not been at the forefront of conversations have come to the forefront with the rise of 11 Labs and ChatGPT and other large-scale AI systems that are out there. And right now, we're grappling with those questions and trying to find answers to them.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, how within that kind of tone on the AI side, how
Yeah.
serious of a threat do you think AI is to the voice industry or voice acting industry?
I think AI in general is a threat to every industry currently. I think
Mhm.
there are very few industries that are going to be buffered from it. Voiceover is very quickly and very quickly became kind of the one of the first industries to get hit alongside graphic
Mhm.
artists and other people who it's easy to synthesize
Mhm.
or create clones of. Um, we are seeing this in job loss across the board. Current surveys put about 14 to 15% of people having knowingly lost work to AI. Doesn't include those who have unknowingly lost work. And there are multiple lawsuits in place right now around the misuse or the unauthorized use of people's voices. So it's very much very much impacting the industry, and very much something that you have to be aware of and knowledgeable about when working in the industry and even beginning in the industry if you're interested in just getting started.
Mhm. I think that's important to point out because it's not. I think when we, at least in this context too, we think voices, we think AI, and it's
Yeah.
easy to cloning. That's probably the one that's getting hit the most. But really, there's a lot of areas that are getting affected. There's like even in some, and I'm
Absolutely.
mostly post-production, but like there's a lot of areas that are getting affected and it's all like trickling in and this whole
Sure.
like, oh, I want to be creative. How can I be creative if there's AI taking over like that? I think that's really
Well, and
important to
that's
point out.
a great point too of what every imagine every voice actor is during a session is employing, there's four or five, 10 other people who are working on the session, right? You have an engineer, you have a script supervisor, you have potentially a PA, you have
Hmm.
an editor at the end. All of those things go away. So you think, great, it's just one voice actor who is being replaced. Well, no, it's not. It is an entire chain of people who are being impacted by the loss of that one voice
Hmm.
actor.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What here's a good shift. What concrete
Yeah.
steps is Nava taking right now to protect voice actors from unauthorized AI users?
So the very first thing
Use.
we did, yeah,
Hmm.
yep. The very first thing we did when we first launched, this was early 2023, was offer up the Nava AI writer, which was some contractual language that didn't previously exist in contracts. And that just said, you may not use these audio files for machine learning or AI or anything to clone my voice, synthesize my voice. Um, from there, we jumped into working with the AI companies directly and having conversations with the AI companies so that they could understand what it was that we were concerned about, working with them to make sure that there were protections in place in their contracts, that they understood why it was a concern to just take somebody's voice off the internet and clone it or allow this technology to be available for anybody to use. And then from there, we've moved into legislation. In the last couple of years, we've had well over 100 meetings in Washington, D.C. Around trying to get protections, not for voice actors, but for all Americans to own their voice, image, name, and likeness, because it is something that concerns all of us, not just voice actors. We happen to make a living at it, but we are not the only ones who are at risk here.
Mm. Ah, that is actually a really good point because, like, like even like phone calls, like you don't know half the phone calls
Absolutely,
I get. I
yeah,
don't even know if it's a
yeah.
real person anymore.
And it takes, the technology is so advanced, it takes 3 seconds of source audio to make a believable clone of somebody's voice. And
That's
that's, easy to do.
No, that's it's pretty crazy. It's how
Yeah.
crazy it's gotten. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, next one. Okay, so yeah, are there new standards, certificates, or guidelines being created to regulate how voice data is used?
Working on it. I think you make an interesting, you call it voice data, which is a very interesting thing to think about, because when you think about something as data versus biometric data or versus a voice print, those things are going to require and entail different protections that are there.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of our arguments is the differentiation between a performance and the biometric data that's contained in that performance. So
Hmm.
you may be able to license, protect the data and use the data of that performance, but do you have the right to extract the voice print or the biometric data out of that performance? And
Hmm.
we're trying to get, language and contractual language and maybe changes in laws to show that difference so that we can make sure that we are absolutely keeping our biometric data safe. Right now, on a very technical sense, there is no real way to trace, track, or monitor or protect your audio files once they have left your computer. So for voice actors, there's very little that we can do currently. We are working with some tech companies to try and create some protections in there, but currently there's nothing that exists for voice actors to use.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, what protections do you believe will become industry standard in the next year or two? Like looking forward.
Like hopefully within the next year. That's a tough one. If we look at that timeline, I think,
Hmm.
soon what we will see is some kind of way to embed protections in the sound waves of your audio files.
Hmm.
That we will see the technology. It's there in theory and it's there in practice in some places, but it's not. The wide scale ability to be able to use that is not in place yet. There are some
Hmm.
standards kind of going into place, C2PA, which is a content provenance standard, and some laws in California that go into effect in January. that are going to require some of these protections to be in place.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's going to be kind of incumbent on the technology, on the companies to be able to put these protections in place in some capacity. But right
Hmm.
now, nothing really exists for us to actually protect our audio files or our voices.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, one thing you said you started talking about a little bit about partnership stuff. I actually had a question for that.
Yeah,
So, are
yeah.
there any partnerships forming between NAVA and tech companies to set ethical standards for AI training? Like anything in the background?
I would say I'm not going to say partnerships, but I would say definitely some
Hmm.
advisory opportunities that we've had. We've tried to meet with all of the major tech companies at one point or another over the last couple of years to let them know what our concerns were and what language and what protections need to be in
Hmm.
place and what changes they need to play be on that side. Um, but no partnerships per se that are in place currently. But we've
Hmm.
definitely tried to make sure that the information is out there, that the knowledge is there, and that companies are aware of the liabilities that they have when they're using AI voices.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that is interesting. The point is that like I've because we talked a little bit this last week with Sean too. Like
Yeah,
some of these companies are using people's voices without permission, or even if they say it like in the posting when people are like, I think he said like
yeah,
I forget what he called the sites that they're on, but like
oh yeah,
yeah, it's like these auditions and stuff. But like
yep,
those companies that don't tell them and using it without
right.
permission, do they realize like is there like what type of that? Maybe that's a good thing to point. Like what kind of like legal is there any legal thing or not really? Like
Absolutely. I mean, best
against
part of it is
them?
we don't really know. There's a bunch of liability. When you're dealing with biometric data, when you're dealing with audio files that you should be protecting. What legal liability is out there? What happens? One of the things that we talk to companies about is are you sure that the voice in that audio file and that synthetic voice using that you do have permission to use it? Are you prepared for what happens if a voice actor comes to you and claims that you're using their voice illegally? Are you prepared to
Hmm.
show the provenance, the full lineage of where that audio file came from, to
Hmm.
show that the person whose voice is there or the people whose voices are blended in there gave permission for that. But there's liability in lots of places, and one of the things I think that doesn't get talked about as much is the fact that there's different liability depending on what state the actor lives in. Right? If
Hmm.
the actor lives, there are different protections in certain states, even to the point where some AI companies um, over the last couple of years will not hire voice actors who live in Illinois or Texas because the biometric protections and laws that are in those states are so strong that it's easier not to hire a voice actor who lives in those states than it is to work within the parameters of those laws.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is cool stuff. Let's see, next one. Are we seeing any encouraging examples of businesses choosing ethical voice practices voluntarily? Are they like all is everyone choosing AI, or is it like do you see any split like between real and
You know,
not real?
That's a good question. Like if you're talking about the AI companies themselves of trying to
Hmm.
work ethically with voice actors, there are many that are trying to do contractual language and licensing agreements with them, with voice actors now going forward. Um, if you're talking about, companies who are just trying to use the technology, maybe video game companies or, internal training videos or whatever that might be, that's a hit or miss. Like, some of them may just be using a third party
Hmm.
without really getting permission of the voice actor. They're using a third party application or program,
Hmm.
a cloning site without the permission of the voice actor. So it's very hard to tell. One of the biggest things I think that what we all can do, and this is, fans and consumers, anybody out there, is to call out
Hmm.
things when they are AI generated, make sure people know that what they are seeing or hearing or
Hmm.
mentally ingesting
Hmm.
is AI generated. So we can hold those people accountable for when they do use something that is not human.
Yes, yes. Um, going off that a little bit and also what you were saying
Yeah.
too, like, and also clearing up a little bit. So, do you think the choice is how much of the choice do you think companies are choosing using AI, or do you think there's a lot of companies still using the real, like to hire a voice actor how it's supposed to be done, or do you think it's more
That's a
towards just what's the split? Do you think between those two?
that's a really good question. I don't know the split. I think we're seeing that. There is a lot of companies are just being forced to use AI in some capacity,
Hmm.
right? They're being told that the boss says we have to use AI, or the owner of the company says we have to use AI. So we're seeing it in that way. There are
Hmm.
We're starting to see more of this kind of human verified or human certified or human whatever come out, that people are being very clear to say there was no AI in this project. This is totally human generated. But until we actually have federally mandated or state mandated disclosure, labeling, and transparency that something is AI generated, it's going to be up to us as consumers to call that out, and it's going to be up to companies to be honest about what it is that they are using and
Hmm.
what they are creating.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, so how are you, as in like Nava, how is Nava or helping voice actors diversify their skills so they can remain competitive alongside AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the one of the things that we're trying to do is ensure that voice actors are better trained and better equipped to be better humans.
Hmm.
And the better human performance you have can provide, the better it will be in competition against the AI. And what that comes down to, to a few different things. This is the speed and the ability to do what you do faster than an AI can do it. Right now, it pretty much kind of the industry standard, and what we're seeing right now is that it takes twice as long to create what you want with an AI generated voice than it does to hire a human. So the humans can be more efficient, can be better at what they do, can be more connected and more human than the AI. That's where the voice actors can really, really shine. And so we're doing our best to help provide as many classes as possible, provide career guidance to voice actors, and just help them get better at being who they are and more human.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, got a couple more here for you. This one,
Sure.
if it sounds repetitive, let me know. But
Sure. Yeah.
what can voice actors do now to protect their voice prints, and themselves from their voices used from AI training, especially without their permission?
The only tool that we currently have, well, there's a couple things we have right now. So, if you can work under a union contract, you will have those protections afforded to you by the union, which is going to be strong protections against AI misuse or using AI without permission. If you aren't able to work under a union contract, and that unfortunately in the industry is 80% of the work, is not currently covered by the union, or I mean, is not currently union work, because it tends to be non-union or FICA or work where the voice actor is not going to run that through the union. Then you are going to have to put protections in place yourself, and that means
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to ask questions. We have a list of questions on our website to ask of an AI company if you're working with them. You're going to have to
Hmm.
make sure that your contract puts in very clear usage restrictions, puts protections in that contract, and that if you need the contract to be reviewed, that NAVA offers a contract review service as well, and you can have one of our lawyers, review the contract for
Very helpful. Are there
you.
policy wins or industry shifts happening right now that make you optimistic for the future?
Yeah, we are seeing in California 4, 5, or 6 AI bills that have gone in place in the last couple of years. We are starting to see some shifts in terms of service on different websites so that they're putting protections in place on the websites. We are seeing some protections going into place on some of these cloning websites to hopefully keep
Hmm.
unauthorized cloning off of the site. And we are starting to see some websites that are providing the ability to submit complaints and have a takedown notice submitted to get voices removed.
Hmm.
On the policy level, on a federal level, nothing has happened yet.
Hmm.
And so we are looking to the states, and I guess in a solid win, there was the AI moratorium that they tried to put in place in the big beautiful bill a few months ago that was removed, and we are currently in that fight again. They're trying to put another AI
Hmm.
moratorium in the National Defense Authorization Act, and we're trying to push back against getting that added. That would say that states cannot regulate AI, and we
Hmm.
believe that states should have the right to protect their citizens.
Hmm.
And so we're fighting for that protection as well.
Yeah. Well, I just really appreciate your time, Tim. Want
Sure.
to point out, like, is if people want to get involved either with NAVA or like the
Yep.
latest news and that kind of stuff, what's the best place? Is it social? Like, where's the best place to live for that
Yeah,
stuff?
we're all over socials, Nava Voices, website navavoices.org. We are, encouraging anybody who is eligible to join and be a member. If you're not eligible yet, we have a newsletter on our homepage. Sign the newsletter. We send out information. We have a ton of community classes that are open to anybody, donation based community
Mhm.
classes that people can take those classes. And we should encourage everybody to to be active, get involved in your community, talk to the people around you, make sure
Mhm.
that the people you are working with are educated on the dangers and the potential things that you can do to protect yourself in the new AI
Mhm.
world.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Tim, and
You're welcome.
thank you everyone for listening. Yeah, so that's it for this week's episode of the Real Podcast. If you are, just want to point out here, us at Chromatic Visuals, if there's anything that in the midst of all this crazy industry, just like talk and this like all the chaos that's happening right now. What we do here over at Chromatic Visuals, we are a post-production studio that helps offload all those projects for those that can't take them on themselves and that are overloaded. So if you would please head over to chromaticvisuals.video and click the start project button if you're looking for something like that. We would greatly appreciate that. And until next time, we will catch you then.